Hey, Neil McDonnell here. Welcome to LinkedIn Live. We are going to get started in just a minute. Just want to check all my technology to make sure it's coming through before I go into some kind of massive, great content. Do me a favor, if you can hear me, a couple of my favorite fans out there, if you can just give me a thumbs up or something in chat that lets me know, or Cesar Gus, text me, let me know. As I'm waiting and we're getting started, I did just want to give a shout out to people who are beginning to learn your core competencies. And it's important, I think, when you think about knowing and liking and trusting people, that people know you. And these are some of the folks that I'm getting to know better and better on their core competencies, so that when I'm off talking with customers or agencies, et cetera, then I remember them. So Amit Shah, Data and Artificial Intelligence Solutions. Hunter and Greg from the Bain Group out in San Diego, the SharePoint folks, and Office 365. Taz Wooby, cybersecurity and an 8A Stars 3 holder, along with Kimberly Wright, also an 8A Stars 3 contract holder in a cybersecurity firm specializing there. Jim Norwood, Jim Cropper, other cybersecurity folks, they're just solidly in my head. Keith Swanson, cybersecurity, and Doug Keaton, cybersecurity. I think there's a trend here about cybersecurity, right? And then Jim Barry, Office Furniture. I just want to give a quick little shout out, and I'm happy that I'm beginning to remember who you are and what you do, because I work with hundreds of small businesses, and it's important to me to begin to learn, just even having it casually enough when somebody says, hey, do you know somebody does cybersecurity? Yeah, I sure do. Do you know anybody can help with office furniture? Sure, Jim. Let's talk over there. So, and there's cybersecurity right there. So thanks, Kelly, for the bump on quality. I think we're good to go. I'm going to get started in just a second here. So I'm Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I want to welcome you to my daily LinkedIn Live, where I discuss process and procedures for you to achieve success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market, and since 2018, I've been working with folks like you to just teach you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. The process goes from A to Z, and at different points, we'll talk about different steps in the process. Today, we're going to be talking about the sales pipeline in the federal market. One thing I just want to mention as it relates to those shout outs I just gave is go ahead and put your company name and core competency in. See if you can start getting me to remember who you are. But I did want to give a gift to you. Often I attend these type of webinars, and if you wait to the end, you get this. Well, I just want to say thank you for showing up, because it actually makes it so much more fun for me, who's coming in the middle of the day trying to provide these daily training sessions. It makes it so much more fun and more rewarding for the effort I put in to try to prepare each day's topic. So today I want to give you a gift for any of you who are interested in this. I'm going to be talking about the sales pipeline, and I'll be talking about something that I have a checklist for, and it's called a pipeline planning checklist. It's a health check, if you will, of your pipeline. And I'll explain it a little bit, or you'll see me explain what might be on it as we go along. But if you'd like a copy of that, just in the comment, put pipeline planning checklist, and I'll make sure I shoot it to you when I get a chance. So let's get started with a kind of a baseline question, right? What is a sales pipeline, and why is it important? For me, the two words you can use for this is reliability and predictability. So let's take predictability for 1 second, because as a small business owner or as a leader, I want to be able to look into the pipeline and predict the amount of revenue I'm going to get. I've said this to people before, that we're in business, and businesses are to make money. That's our whole goal as a business. There's all sorts of nice things we want to do. But the reality is, if you're not making money, then why are you in business? I run the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. That organization's job is to not make money. So nothing I think about is trying to make money through the chamber. But in a business, whether it was my old business or whether it's BD in the Box or your business, we want to make money. And so when we look at a sales pipeline, it gives me the predictability of how much money will I make, or will I be making the money that I set as a goal? And I'll talk about goals in a second. By the way, I don't really monitor chat. I want you to put chat. I want you to engage with each other. But in order for me to stay focused on the message and give you what I hope to deliver today, first I focus on delivering it, and then I come back and look at the comments and chat. Excuse me. The other word I used was reliability. So in a sales pipeline, there needs to be reliability that what is in the pipeline, leaders or you, if you're not the leader, but maybe you're in a sales role, you can count on what's in the pipeline to come out the other end as success. Or you can count on whatever is in the pipeline, independent of win or lose, whatever's in the pipeline is what you do. I talk about core competency. You need to focus on a core competency. Well, in a sales pipeline, you want that only opportunities going into your pipeline, the only opportunities going into the pipeline should be related to your core competency. So I mentioned Greg and Bay Group out in San Diego doing SharePoint or Office 365, which is kind of the next level up for it. Any opportunity in their pipeline, when Greg or his salespeople like Hunter look at it, they should be able to see that every one of those relate to their core competency, and they're not rationalizing why it's in there, right? And so that's the reliability and predictability of a sales pipeline. And so what is a sales pipeline? I think I started with the why is it important. What is it? It's just a sales funnel of all the opportunities you're going to have. So if you think about a funnel and you drop leads or opportunities at the top, right? That's the whole activity of business development. A sales pipeline takes that funnel and defines the stages an opportunity will go through to either mature in its ability to deliver a winning proposal score or winning proposal to the government. It'll either mature to that level or it'll evolve enough for us to realize, you know what, it's not a fit. Let's abandon it. By the way, saying no to an opportunity that is already in your pipeline is a measurement of strength and conviction to your plans and your focus. So make sure as you're going through, if something makes you think that's not the right opportunity, get rid of it so there's room for the right opportunity in your pipeline. So a pipeline is just a list of opportunities, and the pipeline description as it goes through goes into that. In the minute, I'm going to share a couple of slides where I talk numbers, but right now I want to talk just more face-to-face for a second because I don't want to go crazy on building slides. But one of the questions that sometimes people ask, and you might be asking yourself right now, is in my sales pipeline in the federal space, what's the, should I treat subcontracting or subcontracting opportunities and priming opportunities differently? And my short answer is no, right? So when you look at an opportunity, whether it is a subcontract position or a prime, it is still going to go through the exact same process. The only difference is if you're subcontracting, somebody else is doing the bigger lift on writing the complete proposal, on sometimes even leading the capture. Some primes don't really need a lot from subs on capture activities. Sometimes they do. I actually really like being involved when I'm a sub. But either way, it doesn't matter. It's just the amount of work that goes into the opportunity. You tend to do less work. I don't know why I'm quoting again today, but you tend to do less work when you're subcontracting than when you're priming. You must know this, right? But that's the only difference. Other than that, a subcontract and a prime as it goes through should be the same. One thing I wanted to mention with you to be tracking is when you think about federal sales, when you think about capture and a pipeline, there's a lot of complexity that can go in. Most of you should have been aware of something called Shipley's process, or an organization called Shipley. You could not find a more complex process out there than Shipley, right? It's everything out there. I want to make this very clear. I'm not here to debate ideas with people. What I'm trying to do is to figure out, how do I take something very complex, not just Shipley, but the overall life cycle of sales life cycle of an opportunity. How do I take something very complex and bring it down? And that's what I'm trying to do today, is simplify the complex so that you can then begin to build yourself up in skill set and experience. So let me give you a story as an example. I spent a lot of my career as a project manager, right? So I've been 30 years in sales and at least 20 years in project management, back when I was in the Army. And then when I came out, I was serving customers as a small business owner. But in project management, we used to have something called waterfall. And unfortunately, we still have something called waterfall. But in project management, waterfall is this huge effort to look at something you're going to work on, a project, and define every single piece. And then along the lines came agile software development, or what I call agile project management. And the idea is I'm not looking at everything. I got a big picture understanding of what I'm trying to do, beginning with the end in mind, but I'm really operating on a much more measurable and shorter life cycle to get things done. And this allows me to either abandon the project or to continue forward. My point, though, is waterfall is very complex. And when people start thinking about getting into project management, I used to have people talk to me and not do any kind of project management. Government people, in fact, would say they want these fancy tools, project management tools that they can put in place. They really want to get into fancy processes and talking about earned value management and all these things that can go into project management. And when I think about it, right, it goes into building a rocket ship to go to the moon and back level of project management. And what I would tell people is, if you're not doing project management today, start with writing down the titles of any projects you have and due dates. If you have titles and due dates, now you're doing project management because you're looking at it saying, are we on track? And as you start going forward day after day or week after week, you can slowly start adding to the level of complexity you're tracking on a project to move forward. Well, in the sales side, it's the same thing. You could get overly complex with your pipeline and the sophisticated algorithms and calculations that go on to judging a pipeline and the reliability and the value of it. But what I want to tell you today is, if you don't currently trust your pipeline, or if your pipeline is basically empty, then stop for 1 second and start fresh and begin to put things in. As you grow, you can get more complex with how you're looking at your pipeline. But if you're not $1 billion firm, don't operate as $1 billion firm. And here I'm talking mostly to firms that are under $40 million and you're looking at stuff. Your goal really is sales and getting more sales. Don't add so much more complexity that your salespeople aren't able to sell. And so this goes into the complexity that's in the pipeline. So I wanted to talk to you about stages that are in a pipeline. And these are stages from my perspective after years of just looking at stuff. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. Again, I don't like debating people on just the concept. These work for me and for my customers, and it moves things forward. And so I want to share my screen really quick. Let me just do this. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through a really basic slide, but in the pipeline, I have a set of stages. Unqualified is what I tell people. Anytime you find forecasts, you see something in GovWin, whatever, when it goes into your pipeline, put it in as unqualified. The reason I say I have an unqualified thing is because I used to find customers whose capture people, and maybe you're like this, would work on opportunities that are not in the pipeline because they're preparing them to be ready to go into the pipeline. And I think that's crazy because, excuse me, you'll put a lot of effort into that, but no one's tracking it. And so what I tell salespeople is get the opportunity into the pipeline as soon as you start tracking on it. You know, the company should not be counting on an unqualified thing. The company shouldn't even be looking at unqualified, but you should put it in. So it follows a predictable set of process steps that move forward. You can begin to learn from all the ones that you put in as unqualified that move forward or don't move forward. But anyways, unqualified are these opportunities you haven't nailed down yet. In this particular training, I'm not talking about what each stage really means or what the criteria is for moving forward. I've got a different time I can talk about that, but I'll use this one as an example. Nothing moves forward from unqualified to qualified unless it's 100% matched to our core competencies. We want the work. I'm sorry, allergies. 100% match to our core competencies, 100% match to our core customer, let's say the Air Force, and it's a real opportunity of some sort. The government has somehow said it's out there, and or so whether it's the program office saying, yeah, we're definitely pursuing this. It doesn't have to be, we're not the budget stage or anything, but just it has to meet these three basic criteria. Every stage that I have has a defined criteria. So you move from qualified into pursue. At this point, you're moving into the company spending more on proposals or opportunities, and maybe they're looking at solutioning. I'm going to go through this fast because I want to get to the number parts that I really pay attention to. Unqualified, qualified, pursue, bid. And so pursue and bid are the true heavy capture periods. And then when the RFP drops, it goes into proposal. And then when you submit a proposal, it goes into awaiting awards. These are the 6 that I use, right? When I move something forward. And most everything is in that qualified and pursue range, right? It takes a lot to go to bid, and it obviously takes a lot to go to proposal, including the RFP dropping. But I wanted to talk about, and the reason this is important, because I'm going to talk about dollars in a minute, not just on this slide, but on the next slide. When I look at an opportunity in unqualified, I say that 5% of those will result in some sort of proposal that I'll be submitting. And I'm just trying to give myself a number. All of the opportunities in qualified, I can look at those and go, well, 15% of them will move forward to proposal. And before I move forward, I want to pause for a second with data. My numbers here or anybody else's numbers here don't matter. The only thing that matters to you is your numbers based on your data. And so if you have no data, if you haven't been tracking how many opportunities have we put into the qualified stage that have gone to proposal, if you haven't been tracking that, then just use my numbers, because it doesn't matter. Use them as a baseline. And then once you start actually tracking your data, then you will have a company specific set of data that says, when we put an opportunity in qualified, it's 1 out of 4, not 15%, but it's 25% or something. Move forward. Whatever it is, it'll be your numbers. So don't dwell on the numbers here. It's the idea that you can see the numbers increasing, that when I move something forward in my pipeline, it goes to pursue. I'm thinking that 1 out of 4 of these will move forward into a proposal. They'll result in a proposal where I'm going after. And I'm just going to move through these a little faster. Oh, let me try to go back for 1 second. So these ones go forward. And what I'm saying is in proposal, it's 50%. So when the RFP drops and I get something into proposal, 1 out of every 2 that moves forward into proposal will go to the customer as a completed proposal. Again, I'm not looking to get into debates with people on it. These are loose numbers. And the idea is to sit there and say, when you're trying to decide how reliable and how predictable is my pipeline, you have to give it numbers so that you can start tracking those numbers. When you start tracking those numbers, you can adjust these baseline type numbers, these assumptions, to something else matching closer reality to your company. But what it does is give you just a start of being able to predict your pipeline. And so proposals 50%. In my old company, it was 100%. My number was 100%. I wouldn't push something forward to proposal if I didn't actually know back and pursue that it was a slam dunk for us and we were going to write to it. Other people, you tend to be in more of a 50% range. Maybe that 50% is because you let something get to proposal that should be abandoned, or more likely what happens is you might have too much in your pipeline and then you don't have enough people or resources to write to all the proposals. And it's vitally important that if you have multiple proposals in a single month, for example, get rid of the ones that are the least important so your proposal team can work on one and knock it out of the park, right? Compared to working on 3 and doing a half-baked job. So the last part of this one in the pipeline stage is what I mean by 5%. If I'm using $1 million, I didn't put this on the top, but if I use $1 million goal is what I'm trying to get, and I'm looking at, $1 million opportunity value, then there's 2 numbers I want you to keep in mind: an annual contract value and a total contract value, which in the federal government, let's just say is annual times 5, because most contracts are 5 years. So right now, what I'm saying is that if you have an opportunity in unqualified and it's got a 5% chance of moving forward, then in the pipeline, that value to me is basically $250,000, right? 50,000 times a 5-year period. It's just an assumption there, right? But that number works. And you can see as this moves forward, if it gets to qualified and I've got opportunities in qualified, any opportunities I have in qualified, I'm only counting 15% of their value to my total pipeline value. And I'll talk about the total pipeline in a second. So when I look at pursue, it's the same thing. Now, as things are moving forward, I can count on more of that revenue to count towards our goals. Again, these numbers can be adjusted once you get there. You might find that you're higher than 25%. You only go after stuff that's hitting pursue at that level is 50% for you. That's fine. Whatever the number is, you can make any number up you want, as long as later on after you track, you put the real numbers. But here you see, once it gets to proposal, I can count on 50% of the value in proposal, the opportunities in the pipeline, in the proposal stage. I can count on 50% of that actually coming to my company. And so in that case, when I'm looking at a pipeline, I'm trying to look at total dollars. This is how I measure it. The stages and the dollars don't change, right? I use calculated algorithms basically to just automatically measure this. If you heard me before talk about a winning proposal score, even that score is automated. And so all these data points I put into my pipeline, they're automatically telling me about the value of the contract to the company. I don't ask a capture person to tell me what they think the value is. The system tells me. So let's go to this next stage really quick. And I want to talk about the goals. So when I look at a pipeline the way I just did in stages, here, I just want to walk you through a scenario of the dollars and how I think about them and how you might think about them. So if I'm looking at annual contract value, let's just agree what that means for 1 second. What I basically mean is I want to get $1 million for 2023 new revenue, not net new, not any of these things. I just want to add $1 million to my company next year. In order to do that, I need to make a certain amount of sales, et cetera. So we need to go back in the numbers. So annual contract value, in order for me to get $1 million next year, in the federal space, I operate on the assumption that every contract is actually 5-year contract. So to me, I have the second bullet is total contract value. So the annual contract value expected will be 1 million. Perfect. It'll help me hit my goal. But in order to get that, I need to win a 5-year contract that has $1 million a year. Make sense? And again, basic assumption numbers here for a second. So annual contract value, total contract value. The next one is proposal contract value. And this means how much money is, how much value of my proposals are sitting with the government. These are proposals I've submitted. And the reason I use 20 million here is because I operate without data. I operate with a 25% win rate, or every 4 proposals I submit, I'll win 1, right? The number doesn't mean anything until you have data to say what your company specifically would have. But I just use 25%. That's fair rate. I never won less than 30% when I was in my last company. That's why I like coming down to 25%. So anyways, what this is telling me is if I won $1 million in 2023, I need to win a $5 million contract. In order to win a $5 million contract, I need to submit $20 million in contract value or proposals to the government. And when I say submit, I mean that there's some criteria, and I don't want to go too far into this because we're limited on time, but this has to be 4 $5 million proposals I'm submitting. And there's all sorts of numbers that are in here, but it can't be just 1, right? Because if I'm winning 1 out of every 4 contracts or proposals that I submit, then if I win a middle one, it can't be for $50 when the other one's for 19 million or something, right? And so every contract, every proposal I submit is currently just assumed to be $5 million. As I'm backing up into the pipeline, now I'm looking at this saying, when I look at my pipeline, I'm saying 1 out of every 3 opportunity dollars that I have in the pipeline will win. And again, this is an assumed number, 30%, 33%. Your own data, once you start tracking it, should tell you exactly what your company is running into, or what you as an individual salesperson is running into. But here, the pipeline value is 60 million. What this is telling me is if I want to win $1 million so that I can bring it in next year for revenue in 2023, I need $60 million in my pipeline for proposals that'll be going out the door this year, right? That'll be awarded this year to start and be fully billed next year. So that's the level there. Let's do this again, though, at a $10 million level, right? I tend to work with companies that are trying to bring in 10 million annual contract value per salesperson, if you will. And so here, it's the same example as you go forward. 10 million, I need 50 million in total contract vehicle or value because it's multiplied. And then proposal value. So I need 4 proposals out there that are $50 million a piece, basically, right? I just want to keep to that basic number. So I need 4 opportunities out there. That means they have to be $200 million in value. And in order to do that times 3, I need a pipeline that is $600 million. If I was looking as a leader to 2024 saying I want to bring in 10 million, then I would be looking to you as a salesperson saying, do you have $600 million currently in the pipeline for 2023 dollars? Let me come back here really quick. I'd be looking at that. And so that math in there, that's the stuff I'm talking about in the pipeline checklist. If you want a copy of that, I'll give it to you. The checklist is designed in a way that if you start plugging in some numbers, it gives you the value you should have in your pipeline. One of the things I didn't talk about, and I can expand another time on, is each one of those, when you look at each one of the stages of a pipeline, they have calculated value that give me the weighted value. So if it's $1 million, there's a weighted value, and weighted just means how much of that $1 million is real, is my way of describing it, because then you have a realistic look. I don't want $600 million here. I want 600 million weighted or real dollars going forward. I know this was a lot in there. Let me see question. I'll take one of these questions. I just focus on the time is my only thing. I'm happy to come back and talk to folks, but how do you approach track pipeline pursuit between new opportunities on SAM versus existing awarded contracts that are going to expire 6 to 12 months? So to me, if I'm answering this question correctly, right, they're all the same. A new opportunity or one you think is going to be recompeted. That's what the question really is how do you track the difference between new and recompeted? In each one of those stages of the pipeline, I have criteria that needs to be met. I did a previous video where I talk about proposal winning score. And basically the proposal winning score is calculated by the activity that happens in each stage. And so if I have a recompete, I might get to pursue a lot faster because a lot of the information is already there. I already know who the program office is, the core. I can go find the incumbent and try to find their people and learn more. So I could move forward faster because I'm checking things off on my capture activity list. If it's, excuse me, if it's a new opportunity, then I'll move slower through this. And it's vital that as you move to each stage, you make sure you're checking off the criteria or the activity that must be completed in each stage. So I don't think of new or recompete differently. I just know that a recompete is easier to find information, but perhaps a new means I don't have to compete with an incumbent, right? So, but going through the pipeline, new or recompete, subbing or priming, it's kind of all the same. We're checking off, do we have all our ducks in a row so that we're going to win the proposal? Hey, I'm sorry. I have a whole nother set of bullets I was going to talk about on how to get into how to add opportunities into the pipeline. And obviously I didn't get to it. And we're going to wrap up here, but I'll do a whole separate one. Maybe I'll try to do it next week where I just talk about, well, how do I find opportunities? Just like what people were asking. How do I find opportunities that are new? How do I find opportunities that recompete? I'll just do a separate LinkedIn Live for that. I think we're going to wrap up here. My time's down to the wire. If you found value in this, please give it a thumbs up so other people find it. If you have any questions for me, right? If your company's really at this stage where you're trying to go after 10 million plus kind of value in your contract value and you want to ask me questions, really anybody, but feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and ask me questions. And the last thing, just remember, if you'd like a copy of that pipeline checklist, put it in the comments, especially if you're watching the replay. Feel free to put it in, and I'll come back to you. So remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process. I'll see you in tomorrow's training.